Welcome everyone. I'm Jason and I want to talk to you about spot colors. What are they? How do they work? Why do we use them? What do we have to pay attention to? What things can we do with these spot colors? What can't we do? And how do we work with them in Photoshop, InDesign, Illustrator, and Acrobat? I'm going to show you how to set them up and work with them and some of the ins and outs of things that you should and shouldn't do with spot colors. So come on along. Let's find out. Let's get deep down into what spot colors really are. Well, think of spot colors as crayons. And when you go and you use a crayon out of the box, you don't mix these colors together. You simply pick the color that you want. If you want a crayon that's blueberry, you take the blueberry crayon and it's a single ink. And that's what a spot color is. And spot colors have many distinct advantages because they offer a brighter hue and a larger color gamut than any color that we use in traditional printing. And traditional printing, if we print with color, is printing with cyan, magenta, yellow, and black, commonly known as CMYK. It's also called process colors because these four colors go together to pretty much form the visible print spectrum that we see when we look at a magazine or a newspaper or a picture. And it's also called four-color process, hence the four colors, cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. Now, spot colors have nothing to do with four-color process. They are their own singular ink. Four-color process, or CMYK, uses combinations of cyan, magenta, yellow, and black to reproduce as best as possible the visible spectrum that we see when we print. Now, spot colors, huge advantage because we can get a singular color and only put down and pay for one singular ink. But if we would like to print with a metallic or a fluorescent or a neon or a pastel, those are colors that we really can't get to by mixing cyan, magenta, yellow, and black together. And that's why we need spot colors. Well, the most common spot color system that we use is the Pantone Matching system, commonly referred to as PMS. And this is the standard for colors all around the world. So if I print with PMS 235 here, and I print with it in Europe, and I print with it in Asia, that color is standardized around the world, so I'm going to get the exact same color when I'm printing, no matter what. But the Pantone Matching system goes far beyond ink. They also have it for metal, vinyl, fabric, leather, and plastics. So chances are, anything that you touch or see or you use or you wear, there's a pretty good chance that there's a Pantone Matching system equivalent to get that color to be what that color really truly is. If you've ever seen a spot color denoted on something or in a Pantone color guide or on something that's being printed, you'll notice that it's usually a number, 3 or 4 digits, followed by a C, followed by an M or a U. Well, those numbers are actually the same color ink. The C stands for printed on coated paper, the M on matte paper, and the U on uncoated paper. There is no difference in the color of the ink. However, when you print it on coated or matte or uncoated paper or plastic or vinyl or metal, you're going to get a different look. And so Pantone actually offers these Pantone color guides that are printed on coated paper, matte paper, and uncoated paper, so you can see exactly what this spot color looks like and how it's accurately represented. These are not different colors, and the C and the M and the U really have no bearing on the color whatsoever. This is just simply the representation when they are printed on coated or matte or uncoated paper or any other surface. Pantone 325 is just simply a color. Same is true if you take a cherry red crayon and you color on white paper as opposed to yellow paper or brown paper, it's going to look differently. That cherry red crayon is still the same color. However, it represents differently on the surfaces that you apply it to. Now, when you open up a Pantone guide or a Pantone fan deck or a Pantone color swatch book, you're going to see that they are indicated by a 3 or 4 number definition. Now, it started off years ago as just being 3 numbers. So if I were to look at this picture and I look at Pantone 237, the C is just indicating that the paper that color is printed on is a coated paper. But over time, they decided to add more colors to this. So you'll notice that next to this, I have Pantone 2375. Well, Pantone 2375 is not 2,375 colors in. It actually falls between Pantone 236 and 237. So Pantone 2375 is kind of a combination of 236 and 237. So a lot of times people can't figure out the numbering when they're working with spot colors. Well, a better way to think of this is Pantone 2375 being halfway or 0.5 of the way between 236 and 237. Pantone also makes process colors, which have nothing to do with spot colors whatsoever. Process colors are just CMYK. And why would we need a Pantone process guide? Well, if we don't know how certain percentages of cyan, magenta, yellow, and black look, Pantone makes a color guide that allows us to see a certain percentage of cyan, magenta, yellow, and black all mixed together. And when they do that, there's nothing particularly special about that mix. It's just that it's nice to see what that color looks like, and Pantone then has a reference. So if you ever see a color that has a P in there with a couple numbers and maybe a dash or something, that specifically tells you that is not a spot color. That is a process color. And also the C or the M or the U that follows it has nothing to do with the color whatsoever. It's just simply the paper that it's printed on to give you that representation of this color on coated or matte or uncoated paper. Now, these process colors are made up of CMYK, and they are not spot colors, and they are not related to spot colors. This is the one biggest error that people believe, that because Pantone colors are spot colors, that everything Pantone makes is a spot color. No, not true. Now, we do see spot colors traditionally as Pantone, so we immediately assume that they are, but not necessarily. So the next question is, why do we use a spot color? Well, first of all, spot colors offer a much broader range of bright and saturated colors than combining cyan, magenta, yellow, and black together. So they're going to provide me with colors that I just can't get in some cases with doing 4-color process. Plus, every ink costs money. So the less inks I can print with, the better off I'm going to be for my budget. So when I'm printing letterhead or stationery or business card, using less colors is probably a really good thing. And I get more precise colors because I'm not mixing 4 colors together in my printer to get this. I'm literally getting that specific color. So why pay for 4 colors when we can get 2 colors? This particular card has Pantone 3035 and Pantone 142. You notice how I didn't put the C or the M or the U after it because it makes no difference. Those are the colors. What makes a difference is whatever paper I print it on. That's what is going to change the look of the color. Another thing, what happens if I want to print with a metallic or a pastel or a neon? No combination of cyan, magenta, yellow, and black will ever give me that. But Pantone Matching System actually offers you a complete list of metallic colors, pastels, and neon colors if you want to print. Now, interesting things with metallics and pastels and neon colors, there are a couple little tricks to these. First of all, when you print a metallic on something other than white, you're going to get a noticeably different color. So always check with your printer to make sure that your metallic is going to work really well on something other than white paper. Pastels can also change drastically when printed on different colored papers, and some of the neon colors actually require you to print that color twice, or what they call do a double bump, in order to get the true depth of that neon color to work. So if you're printing with a neon color, you may have to pay for 2 colors, basically the same color twice. One color goes down, and then the next color goes down, same color goes down again, to get that true vibrancy. So again, when you get into these specialized colors, always talk to your printer to see what ins and outs you may have to pay attention to when you print with these. Spot versus process colors. I said that Pantone makes a lot of different color guides. And you can get spot colors, you can get pastels, you can get metallics, you can get color bridge, and you can get CMYK. Just because the word Pantone occurs in that does not necessarily mean it's a spot color. Yes, we assume it's a spot color because that is the most prolific and the most widely used spot color. However, not all Pantone colors are spot colors. So when you go into InDesign or Photoshop or Illustrator and you see this entire list of Pantones, the only true spot colors here are the metallics, the pastels, the neons, and the solids. The color bridge is actually showing you what that spot color would look like if it was converted into 4-color process, CMYK. The Pantone CMYK here is actually process color. Just because it has the name Pantone in front of it, it's still a 4-color process and has nothing to do with a spot color. So keep that in mind. The magic of Pantone, and it truly is wonderful, is not always being a spot color. One of the things that Pantone also offers is the Pantone bridge. And you may be printing with a spot color. However, you need to go ahead and you need to print this, say, in a magazine, where magazines don't normally print spot colors. Pantone makes a bridge, which is a guide that shows you what the actual solid spot color looks like, here on the left, and then on the right shows you the closest, nearest equivalent that can be achieved using cyan, magenta, yellow, and black, or 4-color process. Sometimes these colors look virtually the same. Other times there's a huge divergence. And you can see in the solid single Pantone spot color on the left, we get a nice vibrant pink. But on the right-hand side, when this spot color is converted and you use cyan, magenta, yellow, and black, this is the close as it can come. So we do lose the vibrancies. Now, keeping in mind metallics, neons, and pastels, there is no conversion to CMYK. You just can't do it. Either you print with those spot colors or you have to choose a completely different color altogether. Spot color accuracy is one thing that is absolutely crucial. And the only way you can see truly what the spot color looks like is by buying a Pantone guide. Now, you can see a whole list of Pantone guides here. Pantone solid coated, that just means the colors that are printed on coated paper. Those same colors printed on uncoated paper. The color bridge, meaning spot color on the left, CMYK on the right, both on coated and uncoated paper. Then they have completely unrelated CMYK colors, which are not spot colors at all. They are 4-color process, printed on coated and uncoated paper. So there are several different color guides that you need to purchase or you need to look at in order to see how these accurately represent. Why? Well, because Pantone colors are a single ink, and nobody has a Pantone printer that they can say, I want to print with Pantone 256, and just simply hit print and have their printer make this ink and put it out on the paper right there at home. Okay? Our printers either print in black as a single color printer, or cyan, magenta, yellow, and black as a 4-color printer. We don't have printers that have spot color ink cartridges in them that we can simply hit print and print that out. So we can't really see what they look like on screen because we're just looking at the RGB, the light equivalent of what that spot color looks like. So truly, the only accurate way that we can see what a spot color looks like is printed on the paper or the substrate at the end result, which is why the Pantone guides are absolutely necessary for picking and specifying spot colors. Now, keep in mind that because your printer at home either prints black and white or cyan, magenta, yellow, and black, when you send this to your printer, and we're not talking about your physical printer on your desktop, but the person who is your printer or the print shop that prints your work, they will go ahead and they will order the specific ink that you specify in your file. And some people say, well, wouldn't it be great if we have a spot color printer? Well, the printer would be the size of your house and you would have thousands of ink cartridges. Because remember, spot colors are like a crayon. If you want that particular color, you don't take your crayons and mix the colors together to get it. You get that specific ink and it gets printed. Now, the easiest way to understand this is when you want to paint a room or a wall or trim in your house. You don't go down to the paint store and say, okay, I need this color so I can mix it with this color, mix it with this color to get this. No, you order that one color. That is, in essence, a spot color. You apply it to the wall, and that is your color. And of course, you go down to this paint store and you pick up all these swatches so you can see what they look like. And just like spot colors, you have to worry about, okay, do you order a ink that is, or a color that is going to be flat, or semi-gloss, or satin, or matte, or gloss that changes the look of that paint, changes the look of the ink. So there's a lot of things that go into this. Just like buying paint, inks and spot colors are the exact same thing. Spot color inks are a single color ink. When you go to the paint store and buy a paint, that technically is a spot color. So interestingly enough, the four most common spot colors are cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. And you're like, wait a second, I thought those were process colors. Well, they are once you put certain versions or certain tints of these together. Now, the most common spot color is black because you mix nothing to get black ink. And if you were only to print black, black in and of itself is a spot color. So is cyan, so is magenta, and so is yellow. Those are all spot colors. And interestingly enough, the most common one obviously is black. Now, Pantone also has several spot blacks that are different variations on black. So if you want a darker or a lighter black or a more red black, you can go in and you can specify an actual Pantone black. But in all honesty, when you print with cyan, magenta, yellow, and black, if you print with just cyan or just magenta or just yellow or just black, those are singular spot colors because there's nothing else that you mix together to get cyan. It in and of itself is a single color. And that always confuses people because they're like, well, I thought you mixed these all together. Well, yes, once you mix them all together, that is what we call four-color process, the four colors mixing together. And then you print it out on the page, and you're going to get several different colors by mixing the inks. So next, is white a spot color? Because people say, can I print with white? Well, yes, you can, but if you look at your actual printer cartridges, you've got cyan, magenta, yellow, and black, and you never buy a white print cartridge. And the reason why is because we don't technically print with white. When we do print with white, it may be, say, on a bag. Okay, so we may have a foil bag and we need to print with white. Or say like this window cling where it's clear, but we need to print with white. So white can be an ink that we print with, and we can also get a Pantone white or a spot color white. And if you do silk screening, you can silk screen with a white ink. But generally, we don't go and specify a white ink unless we specifically need a white ink. And when you go into your swatch panels in InDesign or Illustrator or Photoshop, you can choose white, but white really isn't white. You're not really printing with white. What are you actually doing? Interestingly enough, when you print with white, you're not really printing with white. What you're doing is you're actually telling the thing that is white, whether it be the type or your image, sitting on top of something to print nothing, nothing at all. And the white is then the white of the paper coming through. So even though we see white in our swatch panel here, that is never technically an ink. If it is, and we have to print on something like a bag or a static cling, something like that, we have to specify a very specific white in order for the printer to then use a white ink for the silk screening or the process that they're going to print. Interestingly enough, when you get into InDesign, in the swatches panel, white doesn't exist. And the reason why is because InDesign says, you know what, since you never really print with white, then what happens is it just simply knocks out to the paper. So here is the swatch panel in InDesign, and you can see that it's got paper that looks like white, And it is, because if I were to make a star and put it on top of a picture or a colored background in InDesign and set it to paper by selecting this in my swatches, it basically doesn't print anything in that area and just shows the paper. So let's talk about spot colors and tinting of spot colors. Since spot colors are a singular ink, we can go in and we can tint these to get different, lighter versions of this same ink. And this is completely acceptable to do, because if you're printing with one or two spot colors, you don't want to just use that spot color at 100%. You may want to go in and create a lighter tint of this so that you could have some more saturated and some less saturated areas and get some tone on tone. Keep in mind that setting a tint does not mean that you are making this color transparent. And I've put the yellow bar behind here to show you that the tint here at 100, at 75, at 50, and at 25% does not show any transparency. It just creates a lighter version of that color. Spot colors, you should never set opacity on. And the reason why is because some people think that tint and opacity are the same thing. They are not. 50% opacity means you can now see through this color to the background. A 50% tint just simply says I'm printing less of the color and I'm not going to see anything through the background. Opacity in spot colors is a really bad idea. The reason why is if I was printing with this green spot color here and this orange or yellow bar behind here was also a spot color, I can't be guaranteed that what I see on screen is actually going to look like this green overprinting this orange. And I could end up with a very weird color, or it may not work at all. So, the rule of thumb is do not set opacity with your spot colors. The reason why is because some of these spot colors may not be transparent. Okay? They may be opaque inks. So what you see on screen and what you're previewing is not going to be accurate. It just isn't. So don't ever use opacity on a spot color. Okay? You can use tints. Tints are going to allow you to get a lighter version of it, but not let anything show through behind it. So here, yes, you can use 100% opacity. Yes, you can use tints, but don't set opacity of spot colors. What you see on the screen is not an accurate representation. Don't do it. Also, can you do gradients? Sure you can. You do one color gradients that can then fade out from your spot color all the way out. And technically, you shouldn't fade all the way out to white because certain printers can't hold the really small dots. So, just to be safe, if you ever want to create a spot color gradient, you can go from any tint that you want to in terms of the spot color, and you should really stop at 10% tint at the lightest area. Don't create a gradient with multiple spot colors because, again, those colors are blending together and you cannot control what type of ink. It could be a solid ink, it could be a translucent ink, it could be a transparent ink. So what you see on screen is not going to work. And the worst thing is doing a gradient that combines a spot color that starts at one end and a process color at the other end. Don't do it. You will get a call from your printer saying you can't do this. Doesn't make them happy. So, spot color gradients, yes. From one color to nothing, great. Don't blend spot colors together, and certainly don't blend spot and a process together at all. So now let's take a look at spot colors in Adobe Illustrator. We do not make spot colors. Spot colors are already in our swatches panel ready for us to use. We just simply call up that library, we choose the color that we want to do, and then we put it in our swatches panel and apply it to our artwork or a background or a fill or a stroke or the type. How do we make this in Illustrator? So here in Illustrator, I have a logo for this little Busy Bees Goldenrod Honey label. How did I get these spot colors? Well, I called up my swatch panel by going into my window menu under swatches and called it up. Now if I go to the swatch panel and I want to go in and create a new color swatch here, I don't go in and I don't create a spot color. Okay, I call a spot color up from my library, and I can open that library by going to Open the Swatch Library, and my spot color, my Pantone spot color books are going to be here in my swatch library, color books, and I go down to my Pantone solid coated. It will then open up an entire panel of colors here. These are all spot colors, and they are all global colors. Global colors are indicated by the slash. Spot colors are indicated by the dot. I can do a search for a color here in the search bar, just type in any number, or I can simply click anywhere and I can apply those colors just like that, and they show up into my swatches panel right there. That simple. Okay. Now as I go through and I apply my swatch colors here, like I had said before, black is a spot color. Okay, so even though this occurs in here, and yes, it shows as 4-color process, black is one of the bases of the 4-color process colors, but it in and of itself is also a spot color. Now, if you did want to go in and just choose a Pantone black, you can. Pantone has their basic colors, their yellows, oranges, warm reds, blues, and these are the colors that actually make up the spot colors. And they also have a Pantone black. That's just a spot color black. Nothing wrong with using that. Okay? So then you go in and you apply your colors. You select your shapes, and you go in and you apply your colors to those shapes, making sure that if this is supposed to be a 2-color job, which this is, I'm going to use black and my Pantone 1235, that I'm going to go in and make sure that my content here is all applied correctly, that I've got my spot black, and I also will have all of my other colors here, my Pantone 1235, also applied correctly. Now I'm not using the 167 or the 149, I just added those to my swatch panel here just to show you how to add them here. So I get down to the 2 spot colors that I'm using, and this is what my logo looks like. So my honeycomb inside here, if I double click and I go into isolation mode and select that, I see that's my 1235. I hit escape to get out of isolation mode. I select my strokes here. Those are all my Pantone blacks. Everything's good. Whoops, inside the B here, the stroke here, I definitely want to make sure that that's my Pantone black. The fill is my other Pantone color. And make sure that everything is set up just like it should be and make it all nice and happy. I'm going to go into the body of the B as well, get into my isolation mode, and then I can go in and I can select the fill there. I can select the stroke, and now all of my colors are applied to my Illustrator file. There they all are. Wonderful. Okay. Now, how do I know that these are actually spot colors? Well, one of the things I can do here in my swatches panel is I can click on the drop-down menu and say select all the unused colors and throw them all away. I don't have any unused colors here, so if I had extra colors that were in here that weren't being used, I would just throw those away. Now, how do you go in and create tints of these colors? Well, very easily. If I were to go in and select the wings here, so here, if I'd like to take my Pantone 1235 and tint this back at, say, 50%, this will allow me to get a lighter tint of that color. If I go into my honeycomb that's nested inside this box here, and I'd like to control the tint of that, I could go in and I could tint that back as well. Now I'm not creating any new spot colors here. I'm using the exact same spot colors, but I'm just using them as a tint. Okay? I am not using them with opacity. No, not with spot colors. But how do I know I'm not using any other process colors in here? Well, we check it. So we go under the window menu, and we're going to go under our separations preview, which will call up its own dialog box. And here in the separations preview, I can go and I can see which colors are used where. So if I turn off my CMYK and turn that off, anything that is using any cyan, magenta, yellow, and black will disappear. Oh my gosh, did you see how this disappears? I must be using some color in there. So I'm going to select this right here, and I select this, and okay, my stroke is the Pantone black, and I go to my fill. Look at that. My fill was this black, so I'm going to click the Pantone black to make absolutely sure. It's a good thing I turned these on and off. Now I can turn off my spot color black here, and all of the black disappears. This is how I check. Okay? If I turn off my Pantone 1235, all of that disappears. Well, so it's looking pretty good right now. Oh, but you know what? I noticed something right here. If I turn on this other black here, do you notice how the little stinger on the tail shows up? Whoops, I didn't pay attention to that. So that little stinger right here, oh yeah, it's definitely a different color. And it's not even in the center of the body here. Got to fix that. So here I'm going to select that. I turn on my Pantone black. Wonderful. Now when I zoom back out and I look at my entire illustration here, I can check it very easily with my separate. If I turn off my Pantone black, the black disappears. If I turn off my Pantone 1235, everything disappears. If I turn on my cyan, magenta, yellow, and black and nothing pops up, that tells me I'm not using any of my process colors. So I've pretty much guaranteed that I now have just my 2 spot colors. And I'm feeling pretty good about this. I'm going to save this file. So that's how we work with spot colors in Adobe Illustrator. Now, how do we do this in Adobe InDesign? Well, same thing. We don't make a spot color. We choose from the list of spot colors. They're automatically generated. And it's a little bit easier to do. In InDesign, you don't have to go through a separate library. So here in InDesign, I have my file and I have my swatches panel. The swatches panel basic comes up with cyan, magenta, yellow, and black, and red, green, and blue as colors. If I want to create a new color, I go under my swatches panel and I say, okay, I want to create a new color swatch. And here I could choose from my CMYK, my RGB, whatever it may be. But if I would like to go ahead and pick from the list of spot colors, you'll notice that here is my entire list of spot colors. There's lots of different types of spot colors. Okay? Many different spot color companies out there. True Match, Toyo, Focal Tone, lots of different ones. Okay? Again, remember, these Pantone CMYKs, those are not spot colors. Color Bridge, those are not spot colors. So I'm going to go to my solid coded. And it's going to automatically open up this library here from which I choose. And then I can go and I can click on any of these colors that I would like to add to my swatch panel for me to use. Okay? That's simple. Now as I add them to my swatch panel too, it'll also add them to my library for future use as well. And I can add all the colors that I would like to use into my swatch panel for use. And when I'm done, I simply click OK. Now I can go through and use those spot colors. But what I'd like to do is I'd like to bring my little honey logo in that I've created in Illustrator. Now if I don't remember what colors I used in that file, I'd have to look up that file, come back in here and grab these swatches in here from the new spot color swatches and pick on those two, go in there and say, okay, I need Pantone solid coated, and then put the numbers in here and I can't remember what colors they were. So check this out. Nice trick. I'm going to place that logo that I created in Illustrator into InDesign. So I go under File, Place. I navigate to where this is. There's my logo. I click and drag and I place the logo. And you'll notice when I place the logo, those spot colors that were in the file automatically come into my InDesign file. I did not create those. They imported when I brought this in. And the way I make sure I don't have any extra colors in here when I'm done with my file, as I go into the swatches panel drop-down menu, I select all the unused swatches and I delete them. Okay, there it is. So that's what I have. Everything's right there, ready for me. Okay, and now if I wanted to put a color in the background, I could go and draw a container in the background here, and I could fill that with a color as well, my spot color. I'm going to have no border on that at all, and I'm going to send that to the back using my Shift Command left bracket. And here, maybe I want to create a tint of this. Well, it's actually easier in InDesign to create a tint. There's my spot color, there's my tint, and I say, you know what, let's have a tint of 30% here for this spot color. Now, since I can only go in and I can only create tints, I can only get colors that are going to be at the very least as saturated as my spot colors here. So I'm going to go ahead and have no stroke on this if I wanted to put some type of label on here. And then I could put my black type, or I could put my darker 1235 type in there. InDesign does, however, offer this really interesting feature that none of the other Adobe applications do. This actually allows you to mix these two spot colors together in what is called a multi-ink swatch. If I go into my swatches panel, click on the drop-down menu, choose New Ink Swatch, New Mixed Ink Swatch, I can then choose from my spot colors here, and I can actually mix these together to get a different spot color representation. Now, it's still these two spot colors here, and I'm actually combining them together at different tints to get a different color here. And usually what I do is I go through here and I name this so that I know what each one is. So it's 1235 at 50%, and then black, and that's going to be at 30%. So when I add this to my swatch panel here, I know exactly what this is. And you can see this comes up as a multi-ink swatch. Now what's interesting with this is that now I get kind of a broader range of colors here. Let me add that to my fill. I get a broader range of colors that I normally wouldn't get. Now, keep in mind that if you're going and having this professionally printed, talk to your printer to make sure that they can handle a mixed ink swatch. You can't do this in any other application. You can only do this in InDesign. Now, InDesign also offers a separations preview. Go under the window menu, go under output, there's your separations preview. And here with the separations preview, we turn the preview on to separations. And if we turn off our two spot colors, everything should disappear. If everything doesn't disappear, we know that we have something else in our document that is not one of these spot colors. Okay? If I turn off all of my CMYK here and nothing disappears, that tells me that nothing was CMYK. How does that actually work? Well, here, I'm going to go and I'm going to draw a text container. And I'm going to put some text in here, fill it with some placeholder text right there. And I actually don't go in and make it my Pantone black. Okay? What I do is I actually go in and I make it another black here. And I've forgotten to use my actual Pantone black. So there it is. And when I filled my text, it was actually black. It wasn't my Pantone black here. Now when I go into my separations preview, if I turn off those and that type disappears, that's a flag saying, whoops, guess what? That type is supposed to be my Pantone black. So we'll select everything, apply the Pantone black to it. And then when I go into my separations here, when I turn off my CMYK, nothing turns off. That tells me that nothing was CMYK. If I turn off one spot color, I can see exactly where that turns off. I can see the other spot color, and that turns off. You'll notice when I turn off my black, I have these areas that are now white, and that's because these inks don't mix. So when I put down one spot color on the page, this is what it's going to be, and the black fills in all these other areas. They don't overprint on top of each other. So, interesting. But that's how we work with these in InDesign. Spot colors in Photoshop. A little bit different here. So spot colors in Photoshop, we actually go into our color picker. Let's take a look. Here we are in Photoshop, and I have a picture. If I wanted to get a spot color, I'd go to my color picker in my toolbar, and I'd click. My color libraries are here in my color picker. I click on that, and this has the drop down of all the different Pantone colors that I have. Now, adding a spot color to Photoshop is a very different thing. I can't just go in and paint with this spot color, and the reason why is because if I pick this spot color and I paint with it, it's going to be in the mode that I'm in right now, which is RGB. Okay? They really don't have a spot color mode in here. So if I pick that spot color and I were to paint with it, it wouldn't truly be a spot color. So if I wanted to apply spot colors to my image here and actually have them work as spot colors, I first need to go to my image menu under Mode and convert this to a grayscale image. Once I convert this to a grayscale image, it is now basically just black and tints and shades of black. That's it. So technically, this is a black and white image, and we know that black is a spot color. So technically, we now have a one-color image. It's black and shades and tints thereof. Okay, there's no other colors in there. Remember, white doesn't print. That's just the color of our paper. But what happens if I'd like to go in and add a spot color to this and truly make it a spot color? Well, first of all, we had to convert that to grayscale in order to be able to get to our duotone mode. If you don't convert this to grayscale, you will not be able to get to the duotone mode. Now, duotones, you can have a monotone, which is a single color image, which could be black and white. Monotone, single color. Duotones, two colors. Tritone, three, and quadtone, four. Duotones are where you can go in and you can specify different colors, or in this case, different spot colors, in order to satisfy your need to make your image a color, but not make it four-color process or RGB. Actually make it spot colors. So to pick your tones, okay, you choose monotone, single color, duotone, two colors, and you click on this color square right here. It's going to call up your color picker, and you then go in and you choose your spot color that you'd like to use. There's one of the spot colors. You click on your other color here, because remember, this is a duotone. Go to your color libraries here and pick your other spot color that you'd like to use here. This is your duotone. It is using this golden color and this purple to make up this image. Now, it doesn't look anything exciting. It just kind of looks like a grayscale image that's got a little weird color to it. But we can adjust this. And we adjust this by clicking on our ramps to the left of our ink window. Here, this allows me to go in and to take color out. So here I'm taking the yellow out of the midtones here. This is my midtones. It's the lightest and the darkest. I can really ramp up the yellow if I'd like to make it a lot more yellow. Okay, so I can kind of take the yellow out there. I can go to my purple here and I can kind of bump that up here in the shadows and take it down here and get an interesting look in terms of combining these two colors together, creating, in fact, a duotone. Okay, there it is. I can have a little bit more fun with this and just kind of do that. And you don't see these colors because they're actually kind of being mixed together. All right, but that is truly a true duotone. Now, when you go to save this file, and you go under the File menu and you click Save, here, when you save this file, you need to make sure you save this as a Photoshop file. You notice how a JPEG isn't available, a PNG, anything else. Because the only way you're going to save this with spot colors is going to be as a Photoshop file. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to call this my duotone Lincoln. And if I remember what colors I actually used, I go in here and I put the colors in here, and I don't remember which colors I used here, but it's always a good idea to put those colors in there so you know when you see the file, okay? Not a bad idea. And there is my image. Pretty cool. Now, how about trying something different? How about applying spot colors to an image in InDesign? Well, we can, actually. Crazy enough. However, when we do this, I have to make sure that my image is a grayscale image. So I'm in Photoshop. I convert this to a grayscale image. Okay? This is the only way that I can apply a color to an image in InDesign. Okay? Because it's going to be a Photoshop image brought into InDesign. So I save this as a grayscale image, or convert this to a grayscale image. And then what I have to do is I have to save this as the only file type that I can save this as is a TIFF. Yes, there's other ones that I can save, but this is the only one that's going to work. So I'm going to save this as my grayscale image, and I'm going to click Save. So there's my grayscale TIFF. Okay, let's see how this works. Here I am in InDesign, and I'm going to go to the File menu and choose Place. I'm going to navigate to where I saved my duotone, select it, click Open, and place the file. There's my duotone. And look, those two spot colors that I had created in this Photoshop file automatically came into my swatches panel. So if I then wanted to put, say, a border around this entire box right here, I could select one of my Pantone colors right there, and there is my spot color right there. If I want to put a yellow background behind here, those are my spot colors right there. Beautiful. Now I'm going to show you the other method by coloring a grayscale TIFF. I'm going to go into the File menu and choose Place. Navigate to where that grayscale TIFF file is. It can only be a TIFF, cannot be anything else. And I'm going to click Open, and I'm going to place that image. Now, there were no spot colors involved with this file, but luckily I have spot colors in my swatches panel, or I could go in and I could go to my new color swatch and I could look up the swatches and put them into my swatch panel. But I'm going to use the existing ones here. Now, if I simply select the container of my image, where the image is sitting, I can add a color to the container itself. Okay, so I just added a color to the container. So I can add a color to the container itself just by selecting the container. I'm going to select the fill, and I'm going to apply a color to it. And you see that I'm not actually coloring the picture, I'm just coloring the container itself. Let me make the container larger, and you can see that the whites of the TIFF here allow the color to show through. If I'd like to color my image, I can double click and get a hold of my image, and then I can color my image. Now I could color it with the color of paper, which is going to give me the exact opposite, and paper isn't a color, it just doesn't print anything. But there I could go in and I could apply a spot color to this as well, which is really kind of interesting. Here the contrast doesn't look good. I could select the container again and then set the tint way down for this golden color to provide an interesting look and feel with this. And there is my grayscale TIFF with my two spot colors. Okay, let me switch this. I'm going to make the background purple, and then I'm going to make my image the gold. And so that's what it looks like. And again, you can tint any of these spot colors here and make it look kind of interesting. Definitely looks a lot better with this filled with the orange, and then double click, get to the picture, and fill that with the purple. So two different ways that we can use spot colors with an image in InDesign. This one is actually a duotone where we applied both colors in Photoshop, and this is a grayscale TIFF where we then applied these colors in InDesign. And now a grayscale TIFF, you don't have to apply spot colors, but this video is on spot colors, so it doesn't just require that you apply a spot color to it because the photograph really doesn't know. But it's a really cool method. Now, of course, if we go into our separations preview panel, turn on our separations here, we can see if we turn off all of our CMYK, nothing shuts off. We turn off our purple spot color, that channel goes away. We turn off our mustard color, and that one goes away. So we've now checked that we've used our spot colors here. Quite interesting. So we talked about using our separations preview here in InDesign and in Illustrator. By going under the window menu and calling up our separations preview, this is how we test what spot colors are being used. But did you know you can do the same thing in Acrobat as well? Yes, somebody gives you a PDF, you can tell if there's spot colors in there. And here's how you do it. Now, it doesn't matter how the PDF was generated or from what application. If there were spot colors in there and those spot colors were retained, I can go in and I can actually look at those spot colors under the separations preview in Adobe Acrobat. So here I am in the full version of Adobe Acrobat, and I need to go over to my tool panel over here, and I need to call up my production tools. So I'm going to click on the More Tools because we're not seeing the production tools. And I click on that, and there are my More Tools. And so here, when I come to my More Tools here, I go down to the Protect and Standardize. I'm going to add my print production module over here. And then I'm going to click on the print production, and it's going to open this up. Now, under here, I can look at my output preview. And my output preview is going to show me if I'm using spot or process colors. There it is. I'm previewing the separations here. If I turn off all of my process plates, which is my cyan, magenta, yellow, and black, and nothing disappears, that tells me that there is no cyan, magenta, yellow, and black in here. If I turn off my purple spot color, that's what's left. If I turn off my mustard spot color, that's what's left. So it's interesting how you can check this. So you're not in the dark when you open up an Acrobat file. So you're not in the dark when you open up a PDF file in the full version of Acrobat. You can actually find out what's actually hiding in there. And there you have it, folks. A brief but intense overview of spot colors and how we use them in the basic print production applications. What to look for, hopefully to provide you a better understanding of spot colors and how they work and what you can and can't do with them, and how you can create them, apply them, and find them in all the different applications.